Hi guys, welcome back to another lesson. In today's lesson we're going to be looking at different types of graphs and how to draw and interpret graphs as well. Let's jump straight in. So let's begin by talking about the why. Why do we draw graphs? Why do we represent data in graphs? And the easiest reason is it's easy to interpret data that way. We can visually see the data as opposed to just having lots of words or lots of numbers. It's very visual and very easy to analyze. So there are different types of graphs, but we're going to look at 5 to start with. The first one is a column graph, where the bars run from the ground to the top. Then we have a bar graph, which is similar to a column graph, except the bars are running in the opposite direction. They're running horizontally. Then we have a line graph, which simply has a line, which is easy to interpret. A pie graph, which you've probably seen, which breaks things down into different categories. And then a scatter plot, okay, which is like dots on our graph and represent different data. So to start with, a column graph. So a column graph has vertical bars, as I said before, from the ground to the top, and shows how many people or the frequency of each category. So here we have about 12, 15, 19, 22, and 14. Okay. Then we have bar graphs, which is similar to column graphs, except the bars run horizontally, and it's used when our categories are too long. Okay, so it's similar to a column graph, and we typically use a column graph, but if we have a lot of data or high frequency, we often will use a bar graph. Just a different way of representing the data. Then we have a line graph, which shows changes in respect to another variable. So often it would be temperature, how much does the temperature change over time? So if this was temperature and the temperature started at 55 degrees, over the space of 10 hours it got down to 19 degrees. So that's looking at how much it changed over time. Now a pie graph shows different categories and the size in relation to another, but it doesn't tell us how much or the frequency of each category. So yes, we can see that there's more in A than all the rest, but I don't know how many or the frequency of A. How much does A occur? We don't know that. And then we have a scatter plot, which again is similar to a line graph, except we're not looking at changes. We're just looking at the relationship between two different variables or two different things that we're examining. So, for example, someone's height at a particular age. Now, when we draw graphs, there is a checklist, rules that we need to follow. The first rule is we have to have a title. Now, your title should explain your graph. So by looking at it, I can see that this represents the changes in temperature over time. It needs to have axes that are also titled or clearly labelled and include any units. So if it's temperature, you'd say temperature, brackets, degrees Celsius, or time, brackets, hours. It needs to be even scales, so that means it needs to be evenly spread out, and each group of 5 intervals has to be evenly measured. You must use a ruler when you're drawing a graph as well. And if you need to include a legend of any colours, and this is particularly important for our pie graphs. Let's look at reading graphs. So what is the most popular course and how many people chose it? So the most popular one is the biggest bar here. So we can see that basic programming is the most popular. Now how many people chose it? It appears to be 19 people. How many courses were surveyed? Well, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so 6 courses. And how many people were surveyed altogether? Well, that would be adding up each of these, which is 11 plus 7 plus 19 plus 9 plus 16 plus 13, which equals 75. So 75 people were surveyed. Last thing we're going to do is draw a graph. Now I left on your notes a graph piece of paper that you can draw this on. So you would draw your axes first, so your frequency, and I went up to 10 because that would definitely cover us here. And then I put all my colours at the bottom. making sure that I've labeled both of those axes and I've also given a title to my graph as well. Now, if I draw this graph, it's going to look like this. 5 for red, 2 for yellow, 6 for blue, 5 for green, and 3 for purple. And you can see that it's nice and neat. You must use a ruler. I said this before, but you must use a ruler when drawing graphs. Thanks for watching, guys. Remember, if you have any questions, please make sure you ask. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next lesson. Thanks, guys.